What up, y'all? It's Dev, SBMTG. Come to look at some spoilers. It's good because I got some for you. Another day of previews. Monday marks the beginning of a new week, so we got a lot of stuff to look at today, like 25 plus cards. And as usual, there's the mix of like draft stuff we'll cover real quick first, and then some really interesting stuff to look at on the high end. So hang out with me, chill on the couch. I'll see you right here. We'll talk about all the spoilers from Monday. Let's go. Well, first, some of the bad stuff that I promised you, like Incredis Infiltrator, Enormous Energy Blade, Story Weave. Some of these cards are interesting, but I don't think they have that much to offer, right? Incredis Infiltrator is 2 mana. It's 1 and a black for a 1/2 human ninja with flying. You can pay 3 and a black to have Infiltrator get +2/+2 till end of turn. So it looks kind of good and limited as a 2-drop flying ninja. That'll help in the ninjutsu deck, so that's cool. Later on in the game, it can be like a 3-power creature when you pump it. So like, not the worst thing in the world, but also not a good creature, right? But we'll move on to Enormous Energy Blade. The art on this I find hilarious, but for some reason the drawback makes me actively mad. I don't know why. This is 3 mana, 2 and a black for an equipment. Equipped creature gets +4/+0. It's not terrible. Whenever Enormous Energy Blade becomes attached to a creature, you tap that creature, and then it has equipped too. So it costs a little bit too much to play in the first place. The equip cost is relatively low. But the drawback on this, you tap it when you equip it. I hate it. I don't know why, but I want to punch this drawback in the mouth. I just can't. And I'm a pacifist. Right? But there's just something about it that I hate. And look, I know. You can just swing in with a guy, right? And then, post-combat, second main phase, I'll equip my Enormous Energy Blade. Which, by the way, is just cool. There's an Enormous Energy Blade. It's like if Cloud's Sword from FF7 was a lightsaber. I mean, I'm down for like the flavor of the card, but it's kind of hilarious that it taps the thing. It just, I don't know why that's funny to me, and it actively makes me upset that I can't equip this pre-combat and then swing in with a huge guy. Can't do that. That would be too fun. Can't do it. So let's move on to Story Weave. It's 3 mana, 2 and a green, instant. Choose 1. Put 2 +1/+1 counters on target creature you control. Or, here's the interesting part, put 2 lore counters on target saga you control. The next time 1 or more enchantment creatures enter the battlefield under your control this turn, each enters with 2 additional +1/+1 counters on it. So this card has another word on it that kind of makes me mad, and that's enchantment. Why does it have to be an enchantment creature? I see what you're trying to do. You're trying to make it to where, in limited, I can advance my saga, add instant speed on my opponent's turn, put 2 +1/+1 counters on a saga that becomes a creature, and then block with it. Massive blowout play, right? That seems really cool, but why can't I just do this with any creature? Why can't, like on my turn, or even my opponent's turn, I should be able to play this, advance a saga, get it to turn over, and then flash a creature in, and that gets the +1/+1 counters. Why does it have to be an enchantment creature specifically? I don't know. I think they dropped the ball. It's not like the card would have been insane if they hadn't have put that clause on it. But like one way or the other, I think it is cool. There's going to be times in Limited where if you actually choose to play this, you maniac, you lunatic, then you will be able to just completely out of nowhere, your opponent swings in, advance my saga by 2, get all the results of that, no matter what they are, right? And then block with my saga that I just turned over that became a creature. So that could be cool. You will blow your opponent out. You'll feel very smart. However, you shouldn't feel too smart, because you have included Story Weave in your limited deck, and I'm not sure you should go doing that so often. Speaking of sagas, by the way, we got a bunch of those that we have to talk about again today, and some of them look cool, some of them don't, but we'll get to those a little bit later. I got some lower rarity stuff I need to clean up first. Like Light the Way. I actually think this is kind of a cool card for one specific deck. It's just 1 white mana for an instant. Choose 1. Put a +1/+1 counter on target vehicle or creature. Untap it. Or return target permanent you control to its owner's hand. So this is really good for the Clever Lumimancer deck. I'm not sure if it's better than some of the options that we currently have, but putting a counter on Lumimancer at instant speed and untapping it is really sweet. And of course, sometimes you can just protect your Lumimancer, popping it back to your hand in response to removal. That's not going to feel good, but at least it's an option. And honestly, white doesn't have a whole lot of like 1 mana good protection spells. So usually they have a bunch. They don't have that many right now. So this is actually kind of okay. And again, in just one deck it might go well, but figured I'd bring it up. There's another white uncommon today that looks really, really cool to me. This is Born to Drive. Born to Drive. I live my life a 1/4 mile at a time. It's 3 mana. 2 and a white for an enchantment. It's an aura that enchants an artifact or a creature. As long as enchanted permanent is a creature, it gets +1/+1 for each creature and or vehicle you control. Channel, 2 and a white. Discard Born to Drive. Born to Drive, I gotta say it that way. Create 2 1/1 colorless pilot creature tokens with this creature carries vehicles as though its power were 2 greater. So this actually is kind of cool. It reminds me of the White Omen from a while back. Or like a Raise the Alarm, right? Just 3 mana at instant speed, in this case, for 2 1/1 dudes. And in this case, those 1/1s are kind of good. You know, if you got a vehicle or 2 laying around, they can help crew them. But in any case, 3 mana at instant speed for 2 guys is kind of okay by itself. Right? But if you're at a point in the game where you have a few creatures on the battlefield, and your opponent doesn't have any cards in their hand, suddenly this becomes like +3/+3 or +5/+5 or whatever. You swing in with that thing. Like, it's kind of sick if you can actually land it on a dude and swing with that guy that turn, especially if you can guarantee getting in the damage. So I actually kind of really like this. I'm not sure it's going to see much play or where it goes or whatever, but the last time we had 2 1/1 guys at instant speed for 3 mana, that card saw some play in a deck here or there. So I don't know. I have some aspirations for Born to Drive, but I'm not sure how good it's going to actually be. I think the card's cool, though. Now, there's 3 more non-Saga uncommons to talk about today, but all of these I think are actually kind of really good. Let's look at Go Shintai of Ancient Wars. This is 3 mana, 2 and a red for a 2/2 legendary enchantment creature Shrine with first strike. At the beginning of your end step, you may pay 1. When you do, Go Shintai of Ancient Wars deals X damage to target player or planeswalker, where X is the number of shrines you control. So, first thing I want to say, well, actually, let me flip it. First thing I want to say, this card's awesome. You know, like, there's going to be times in Historic in the Shrines deck where this just like kills your opponent in 1 shot, but more likely there's going to be times where it kills your opponent in like 3 or 4 turns. That's really good inevitability for the Shrines deck, which is something it kind of already had, but it didn't outright have cards that just like kill your opponent, right? Not in this way. It just like created too much inevitability for someone to want to sit there. But this card actually kills the opponent. It's really good for the Shrines deck. But in terms of like another thing that just grinds my gears, just makes me mad about these Kamigawa cards. There's not a whole lot of these kind of cards in the set that make me actively angry. But these shrines are one of them, you know. Wizards came out and said that this card does not have the creature type shrine. It doesn't. So, like, don't get any wild ideas about playing changelings or shapeshifters in your deck or anything that has every creature type. Because all of your changelings and shapeshifters will not be shrines. It doesn't work. Don't even think about it, you silly person. Which is dumb. To me, what is this card's creature type then? Does it just have no creature types at all? And yes, I know that there are subtypes, and some subtypes exist for some card types, and some subtypes don't exist for other card types. And that's how they're keeping it this way. But if you're just looking at it on a casual level, or even as someone who's played Magic for 27 years, like your guy here, there's no way you could tell without some sort of special clarification from Wizards. Having to go on your phone and look it up, that this is not creature type shrine. I hate that it's not. I hate it. Just do it, you cowards. But no, just for your information, one very important thing you need to know about this card is that it does not have the creature type shrine. Why? Because screw you. That's why. Apparently. But we'll move on to maybe my favorite uncommon of the day. But it's not the last uncommon that we'll cover. This is Generous Visitor. Just 1 green mana for a 1/1 spirit. Whenever you cast an enchantment spell, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature. It doesn't even have to be Generous Visitor. Just put a +1/+1 counter on a dude whenever you cast an enchantment spell. This is awesome. This is just 1 mana. You get started on turn 1 in your Enchantress deck with this. That's so good. You know, usually Enchantress has any number of 1 mana options for enchantments. But 1 mana enchantments aren't usually great for Enchantress decks unless they play a specific card that counts the number of enchantments you have on the battlefield later in the game. And often they do. But often Enchantress plays all these cards that, like, you don't play till turn 2 or 3 that then proc off of playing enchantments, right? So your turn 1 enchantment didn't do that if you don't get to play an enchantment payoff until turn 2 or 3. This guy is a turn 1 creature. He's an enchantment payoff on the very first turn of the game. And then on turn 2, you might play 2 enchantments. Make this guy a 3/3 and swing in, play Candle Trap and like another 1 mana enchantment. Swing in or something. Like, I don't know, dude. It looks pretty hot to me, like, even in Standard, but, the farther back you go. Modern, Legacy, these are formats that have, this a pretty wide variety of options for 1 and 2 mana enchantments that are, like, really high impact. So I could see this guy doing work in older formats, but hopefully he gets to do some work in Standard, too, because I really, really like this dude. And I think that he's actually one of the best cards we've seen from this set. Can I just say that? It's probably not accurate, but the way I like to play Magic, one of the best cards in the set so far. But the last, I guess, again, non-Saga is the caveat there. Uncommon that we'll talk about today is a card that I was pretty sure was rare until like 2 minutes ago. This is Reality Heist. This is 7 mana, 5 and 2 blue for an instant. That's to keep that in mind. That has affinity for artifacts. They don't use that phrase anymore, but it costs 1 less to cast for each artifact you control. That's affinity for artifacts. Look at the top 7 cards of your library. You may reveal up to 2 artifact cards from among them, put them into your hand, put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. Card is juiced. Card's pretty good. Why is it an instant? Sick. This is another one that, just like the last card, I could see this doing all kinds of work in older formats, right? Modern, Legacy, these formats that have access to really cheap, really good artifacts in Legacy. I mean, you've got access to a fair number of 0-cost artifacts that are really good cards, right? So, like, this is pretty fantastic for some decks in older formats, right? Especially, again, obviously very artifact-heavy decks. You have to nab 2 artifacts off the top of this. You do get to look at the top 7, but your deck has to be really artifact-heavy to get 2 impactful artifacts off the top with this. So I have my foibles about the card. I'm not too sure the card is, like, super amazing, especially, again, like in Standard or even Historic. I'm not sure we have the enablers that we need to make the deck this card is built around good. The card is obviously good. The deck the card goes in, I'm not too sure. Right? Like, it's not, Thoughtcast from the Affinity deck. It ain't that card. If they just reprinted Thoughtcast, that would be sexy. That would be bricked up if they reprinted Thoughtcast. But no, they're not going to do that. Instead, we get Reality Heist, which is still a pretty good-looking card. And again, the farther back you go, in terms of formats, I think the card gets better. But in Standard, we'll have to wait and see how much work this actually does. But it might be centerpiece in a very important deck, especially once we get this Dominarius set. And then the Brothers War set after that. You know that? We're getting a whole Urza and Mishra set. And that's what they do. They deal in artifacts. So I imagine cards like this are going to get even better when those sets come out. So let's get ready. Hold on to your panties, ladies and gentlemen, because I think this card might be really good at some point in the very near future. Oh, I've lied to you. I am so sorry, everybody. I thought this card was a rare, too. There's actually 2 more uncommons to cover today, but we'll cover them at the same time. Let's talk about Norika and Heiko Yamazaki, the poet, and in the case of Heiko, he's called the General. She's called the General. We used to have the brothers Yamazaki, and now we have the sisters Yamazaki, but they're much, I think, better in a lot of ways this time around. Although, just like the Brothers Yamazaki, they've sort of been rule zeroed into being partners in Commander. You can just play 2 copies of Brothers Yamazaki as your commanders. I think that's what we should do. We should rule zero Norika and Heiko into having partner with each other, because I think you should be able to play these 2 together and play a Boros deck and all that. I don't think you should have to separate these cards. But one way or the other, Norika is 3 mana, 2 and a white for a 3/2 legendary human samurai with vigilance. Whenever a samurai or warrior you control attacks alone, you may cast target enchantment card from your graveyard this turn. And Heiko is very similar, but with artifacts. This is 3 in a red, but she gets an extra point of toughness. She's a 3/3. Legendary creature, human samurai, trample instead of vigilance. Whenever a samurai or warrior you control attacks alone, cast an artifact from your graveyard this turn. So both of these cards are really cool. I think that Heiko is a little expensive to do truly broken stuff with it. I like, though, that both of these can have some relevance to the battlefield the turn you play them if you have extra mana. I think that's more likely with Noriko in a lot of cases, or Noriko, if you want to pronounce it probably correctly. But I'm a Southern American, so I'm Noriko. I think it's possible to play her on turn 5 and get some really good value out of your graveyard. With Heiko, I imagine you probably have to wait until like turn 6 if you want to drop this and then immediately attack with a samurai or warrior and get that value. That's still not terrible value a lot of the time, though. So I don't hate these cards. In Standard, I really don't think that they could be terrible given the right deck, but very often they probably won't have value the turn you play them, especially if you play them on curve, right? But there's, again, multiple ways that bringing either of these card types back from your graveyard can be massively beneficial. Again, especially the artifact one in a couple of sets when we see more artifacts. We will almost certainly see more artifacts in the Dominaria set and definitely the Brothers War set. So, you know, there's a lot of stuff in red that like recurs artifacts from the graveyard in the set, and I would kind of sit on that and wait till Brothers War, because that's probably going to have a lot of work to do at some point in its life cycle. But for the time being, I'm a little bit more excited about Norika. It's harder to attack with her and get value because of her lower toughness, but you get the value regardless of whether the creature survives the combat step or not. So I do like that about it. But, you know, you can play her on 5, attack with a different Samurai or Warrior, play a 2-mana enchantment, and that seems actually very good in a lot of ways. So kind of like these cards. Not sure they do work in Standard, but they're going to do work like on stream. So there's that. But now we can get to the Sagas and actually talk about the last uncommon of the day. I thought more of these Sagas were uncommon, and I thought more of the actual cards from today were rare. Is how this worked out. But let's look at the Fall of Lord Konda as our first Saga today. This is 3 mana, 2 and a white. On Chapter 1, exile target creature an opponent controls with mana value 4 or greater. On Chapter 2, each player gains control of all permanents they own. And on Chapter 3, you exile it and return it transformed as Fragment of Konda. This is a 1/3 enchantment human noble with Defender, and when Fragment dies, you draw a card. So this is just a value saga that will very often not be played on curve, right? Like, but don't think you can never play it on curve, right? Your opponent might be on the play and ramp into a 4-drop on turn 3. And you go and play this, and you feel very smart for playing this on curve. But for the most part, you're going to play this off curve, and against some decks, that first chapter is like never going to do anything. Against most decks, the second chapter will never do anything. Against a lot of decks, you won't get the 1/3 until turn 5 if you play it on curve. But again, you're not playing this on curve, so you might not get the 1/3 till like turn 6 or 7. And it just draws a card eventually. Right? So I'm not like super excited about this card, although there is a lot of value on it. If there's anything that's like, you know, that lets people steal their opponent's stuff, maybe this gets relevant at some point. If every deck plays, you know, a 4-drop or greater creature, and every deck right now does not. But, you know, this can still target Leer and Hullbreaker Horror in, you know, control decks, targets Goldspan and everything in between, right? It'll never hit their Asika's Chariot. That's kind of lame. So, but this still is going to hit a lot of 4-drops. But again, there's whole decks against which this has very little or no use. So I'm not super excited about it, but I do like utility. I'm a sucker for that. So let's move on to a saga that I don't really know why it's rare. This is Tribute to Horobi. This is 2 mana, 1 and a black. On chapters 1 and 2, each opponent creates a 1/1 black rat rogue creature token. And then, on chapter 3, you exile it and return it to the battlefield as Echo of Death's Wail. This is a 3/3 flying haste. When it ETBs, you gain control of all rat tokens. When Echo of Death's Wail attacks, you may sacrifice another creature. If you do, draw a card. So what this is a 2 mana 3/3 flying haste, right? But you could say this is 2 mana for 5 power on 3 bodies, and maybe that's why it's rare. Right? He gets to attack the turn it comes into play, which a lot of these don't. So that's good. And of course, you'll have creatures to sacrifice. You just got a couple of rats, very likely. So you can just sack a rat and draw a card. So it's kind of a 2 mana, 3/3 flying haste, draw a card, and get a 1/1 body. So maybe I've just explained to myself why the card is rare, but I still don't think it's great. I really don't. I want to like this card more than I do, but, you know, you play it on 2. You get your 3/3 flyer on 5. That's probably not, well, you get your 3/3 flyer on 4, rather. And if you're on the draw, that's probably still not fast enough, and your opponent might just have instant speed removal for it. But at that point, I guess you still get some rats. You get your 2 rats that your opponent's already dealt some damage to you with, or blocked your other early game creatures. Like, this doesn't really go in like mono black aggro like you kind of want it to, right? Like, oh, this gets me 3 bodies. Some of it flies. It has haste. You know, like, it draws cards. That's good, you know, sort of late game gas for an aggro deck. But no, you play this on 2. You give your opponent 2 blockers. So I don't know. I want to like this more than I actually do, but I guess I'll acknowledge that 2 mana for an eventual buttload of value, that's probably decent. All right, so let's look at my favorite saga of the day, but it's not the last one we'll cover. This is the Restoration of Aiganjo. This is 3 mana, 2 and a white. This is a good 3 mana white saga. This is just on Chapter 1, search your library for a Plains card, reveal it, put it into your hand, and then shuffle. On Chapter 2, discard a card. You may discard a card. When you do, return target permanent card with mana value 2 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield, tapped. And then on Chapter 3, you exile it, return it as a 3/4 Vigilance, and whenever it attacks or blocks, you create a 1/1 colorless spirit. So this, I think, is actually really sweet. 3 mana is kind of asking a lot for this, but, you know, it guarantees you get a plane. It kind of reminds me of Birth of Melodus, right? It's a saga that gets you a Plains. Birth of Melodus did that. Birth of Melodus got you a 0/4. This eventually gets you a 3/4 Vigilance, which is way better than just a 0/4. Like, way, way better. And the 3/4 that it gets you can get you more bodies. When it attacks, it not only has Vigilance, but it also puts a body up to block when it attacks. That's super sweet. And, you know, it has Vigilance, so it might attack and get you a 1/1. And then in the same turn cycle, block and get you a 1/1. It's actually, like, all of that is really good value on just the creature side. But, you know, on the first half, it gets you the Plains like a Birth of Melodus. And then it might get you back something sweet from your graveyard. And there's plenty of ways you can do this. You channel a land, for instance, and then you get it back. It's a permanent card. You just get it back and put it onto the battlefield tapped. So it actually can be ramp if you channel the land in the early game. But even if you draw this on turn 6 and have to play it then, it's still not bad. You know, it gets you that 7th land for an Emeria's Call or some other expensive spell, or so you can double spell later in the game. And then you'll almost certainly have like a creature. Like, imagine on Chapter 2, this brings back a Luminarch Aspirant. Or imagine, this is even better, an Intrepid Adversary, and you have all your mana open that you then pump into Intrepid Adversary and boost all of your dudes. Then you feel great for playing this card, and eventually, again, your 3 mana investment leads to 3/4 in stats with a keyword ability that brings you more stats when it attacks or blocks. So I actually think this is a really good card with a ton of value on it. Only problem is 3 mana worth it? That's kind of steep even for all of this. It's kind of steep. But I like it. I like the way it lines up. I think it's a really cool card. But next saga to talk about is actually a mythic. It's one of the few mythics that we'll talk about today, but I have to say this one like a Southern American too. Sugu Consumes All is the next card. This is 3 mana, 1 in Rakdos colors for a saga. On Chapter 1, destroy each non-land permanent with mana value 1 or less. On Chapter 2, you exile all graveyards. On Chapter 3, you exile this saga, then return it to the battlefield transformed under your control as Vessel of the All-Consuming, a 3/3 enchantment creature ogre shaman with trample. And whenever Vessel of the All-Consuming deals damage, you put a +1/+1 counter on it. Whenever Vessel of the All-Consuming deals damage to a player, if it has dealt 10 or more damage to that player this turn, they lose the game. So, really, that's a platinum level achievement if you can hit the 10 life loss this turn off of this. I don't think that's going to happen in more than 1 out of every 100 games. I really don't think it's going to, but altogether the card is cool. I think it's a bit of a miss to put this card in black-red. I think flavorfully maybe you have to, right? But the problem is I played treasures in black-red. The color has a ton of treasures, doesn't it? So this destroys all my treasure. It's kind of lame in some ways. I mean, I guess you could just use your treasure to cast this. And then you don't have to worry about it. This could destroy all of your opponent's treasure on your turn, so they have a hard time using the mana. Because they're just going to sack the treasures in response, right? But still have a hard time using the mana on your turn. So there's that. This also gets rid of all the 1-drop creatures and 1-drop enchantments and artifacts. That might matter at some point in this set. Like, who knows? This set might be full of 1-drop enchantments and artifacts. We've already seen a 1-drop artifact that's going to be everywhere. That whatever it is, Moon Snare Prototype, I think it's called. I think I nailed the name there. That card is going to be pretty popular. So, you know, killing that is part of the value, I guess. I could see this having some targets, is all I'm saying, in Standard. And then exile all graveyards is very annoying. You know, we saw that on the 3 mana, it was Elspeth's Nightmare in one of the last few sets. It just rotated. And that was actually a really annoying mode on that card. And then finally, for a 3-mana investment, you eventually get a 3/3 trample that will get bigger as the game goes on, probably. You can modify it in some ways. I love that we can just use that word now. You can modify it and make it bigger in a lot of ways. Put +1/+1 counters on it aside from its ability, you know. And suddenly, you've got a thing that you only spent 3 mana on, and maybe you blew up one thing when it ETB'd, and then you got a 3/3. So it's like a 2-for-1, you know, like, I don't know, cool card. It really is, but probably not incredible, right? Am I wrong? Am I wrong in thinking this card's not insane? Like, I think it's probably good and I want to try it, but I think it's mostly a meme. I do, but you'll feel differently about it when you blow up 4 1-drops with it when it ETBs, right? But let's move on to the last saga of the day. The one that people are talking about. Gee, I wonder why. This is Fable of the Mirror Breaker. 3 mana. All these sagas are 3 mana. 2 and a red. On Chapter 1, you create a 2/2 red goblin creature token with, whenever this creature attacks, create a treasure token. Not bad. On Chapter 2, you may discard up to 2 cards. If you do, draw that many cards. That's Cathartic Pyres, second mode. And then, on Chapter 3, you exile it, and then you bring back the Reflection of Kiki-Jiki, which is almost a Kiki-Jiki, but just barely not as powerful. This is a 2/2 Goblin Shaman, also carries the enchantment subtype, something Kiki-Jiki doesn't do, so there's that. But you pay 1. Sorry, everybody. You pay 1 and you tap it. Create a token that's a copy of another target non-legendary creature you control, except it has haste. Sacrifice at the beginning of the next end step. We're all very familiar with the text on this ability, but this, neither does it have haste, and it would have to because it exiles. When the saga leaves play, it exiles itself. Comes back into play as a creature. So it does have summoning sickness. We've already seen that some of these sagas, when they come back into play, have haste. This one doesn't. So you cannot tap it. The turn it comes into play. And you have to pay 1. So it's just like much worse than a Kiki-Jiki. You know? Part of the whole thing with Kiki-Jiki is that I've paid my 5 mana. I have paid the troll toll. You know, I'm going to drop my Kiki-Jiki and immediately win the game with it, right? You can't do that with this. Which makes it way worse. And not only that, but you have to wait 3 turns on your Kiki-Jiki. Really, you have to wait 4. So, it's not great. In the meantime, though, the saga gets you a 2/2 that makes treasure, sort of. It can make treasure if it gets to attack. I don't know, in a way it's red ramp, and I kind of like that. On Chapter 2, that could be good, right? If you're looking for like the combo piece that you need to win the game off of this card's second half, but I don't know. Altogether, having to wait 3 turns to get the thing, and then having to wait a turn so where it's not summoning sick. Probably not a very good card, actually. Sadly. Really just a sad reflection, indeed, of the original Kiki-Jiki. But now let's move into the non-saga rares, which is funny because we have to talk about a card that mentions sagas first. It's from yesterday. This is Satsuki the Living Lore, just Selesnya colors, a green and a white, for a 1/3 legendary human druid. Tap to put a lore counter on each saga you control, activate only as a sorcery. Boo on the sorcery bit, but still. When Satsuki the Living Lore dies, choose up to 1. Return target saga or enchantment you control to its owner's hand, or return target saga card from your graveyard to your hand. So I just kind of love this card. Like, it's just super cool. You know, like in an Abzan sort of Sagas deck, I can see this working pretty well with Binding the Old Gods and a bunch of other stuff. I mean, like, we've seen a pretty high number of green and white sagas that look somewhat playable already in just this set alone, but we already had some decent green-white sagas. So, you know, I could see this card working pretty well. I love that we have like an enabler for a saga deck, you know, even in like a format like Brawl. Right? You know, or Historic Brawl for that matter, where you can go even farther back, play even more sagas that are now, you know, not available to play in Standard. Historic Brawl, I could see making a really cool saga deck with this as the commander. So there's a lot to get excited about with this card. I love when they make these cards that interact with sagas in one way or another. We don't have enough of those yet. This is a really cool way of doing it, especially in a set that has so many sagas that become creatures. There's a lot of different ways to abuse this card. So I love this. You know, when you return a saga from your hand, in some ways, like in a lot of cases in this set, you're going to be getting a creature back. Eventually, it's going to be a creature, right? And returning a saga or enchantment you control to owner's hand eventually, that ain't bad either. right? Because you can like redo a saga. Sometimes the best chapter is the first chapter. Or if I have like a hallowed haunting in play, I can return an enchantment to my hand, play it again, and then get more value in the form of spirits or something. Like, there's a lot of ways to use this card, and I plan to try all of those many flavors, because, I mean, the card's only 2 mana. It's going to be fun to mess around with. But let's look at a rare or 2 that I'm fairly certain probably belong in the junk drawer. Actually, is there only 1 junk drawer rare today? To my mind, yeah, I think so. And that is Aiganjo Uprising. All my apologies to people who like this card, but this is X and then Boros colors, a red and a white, for a sorcery. Create X 2/2 white samurai creature tokens with vigilance. They gain menace and haste until end of turn. Each opponent creates X minus 1 2/2 white vigilance, white samurai creature tokens with vigilance. So they get exactly as many as you, minus 1. But your 2/2 samurais have haste and menace, so they can only block half the amount of dudes that you make. So what this is hopefully probably a win the game button, right? Like, oh, I can make 10 mana, I win the game, right? Like, is probably how this works. I make 8 guys, right? I swing in, that's 16 damage, you're taking at least 8 of that, right? So you probably lose the game. However, I'm just not sure what this goes in, right? Unless you can make infinite mana somehow, and just make literally 50 plus dudes, like all at the same time. And ladies, there's lady samurais. I'm not really sure how good this card actually is. And in a lot of ways, why wouldn't I just cast a fireball? Like if I had the infinite mana that it takes to win the game with this spell, why would I not just cast Light Up the Night and win the game that way, right? So why would I chance my opponent being able to remove all my guys? But they get to keep their guys, somehow, right? So I don't like it. I'm not a fan. Don't like the card, and I think it's probably bad. Let's move on from a card that I don't like as much as I should, maybe, to a card that I like way more than I should, and that's Brilliant Restoration. Maybe my actual favorite card of the day, for real. I love this card. I can't wait to play it. Probably not good. It's 3 and then 4 white, so 7 mana for a sorcery. Return all artifact and enchantment cards from your graveyard to the battlefield. Whew. It's so nuts. I have sort of made an arc over the last 8 to 12 months, something like that, of playing Haunting Voyage and trying to make that card good, because I wanted it to be good. I've played it with so many different things, and it's just never good. And it's like a 6 to 7 mana, return all of this from your graveyard to the battlefield, and exploit things. And it's just not a good Magic card. But this I'm gonna try it. I'm gonna fall for it again, hook, line, and sinker. And I'm going to love being wrong about it, as I'm very sure that I am. But I'm gonna try to play this card every day. But I guess it's my, responsibility as a content creator to tell you this card is probably not good. It's a trap. It costs too much mana. Don't play it. It's probably not good. Leave that up to me to be frustrated on stream trying to play the card, and it doesn't do the things. Come by and watch when that happens. I'm going to probably try to play this card in like 5 different decks. I won't stop until it works. I will lose the rest of my hair trying to make this card work, which I don't have long to go on that front, but one way or the other, I will be completely bald by the time I come to terms with the fact this card is not good. It's going to be this format's Chamber Sentry for me. So look forward to that. I love this card so much. Can't wait to play it in Hallowed Haunting, where I bring back like 4 enchantments from my graveyard at the same time, son, and get like all the spirits in the world. One of the enchantments I bring back gives all my creatures haste, so I can just swing that same turn. It's going to work. It's going to work. But it really won't. So, again, I don't recommend you play this card, but I love it, and I'm going to play it forever. I guess if there is another card from today that's not actually probably not a great rare, it's Mech Titan Core, as much as I want it to be, right? I want this card to be so good, but I feel like they wimped out a little bit, to be honest, on the design. Mech Titan Core is just 2 mana for a 2/4 artifacts vehicle that crews for 2. So hey, 2 mana, 2/4 crew 2 could be worse, right? But for 5 mana, you exile Mech Titan Core and 4 other artifact creatures and or vehicles you control to create Mech Titan, a legendary 10/10 construct artifact creature token with flying, vigilance, trample, lifelink, and haste That's all colors. When that token leaves the battlefield, return all cards exiled with Mech Titan Core except Mech Titan Core to the battlefield tapped under their owner's control. So the flavor is off the charts. Like, the flavor's on point. You did it. You made it. You made a mech. You did the thing. It's anime. You did it, Wizards. I'm so proud of you for designing this card. But it costs 5 mana to do the thing. Not only does it cost 5 mana, it costs 5 mana and then 4 other artifacts. Wait, no, not just artifacts. Artifact creatures and or vehicles. And the thing doesn't even have, like, indestructible or hexproof. It can just get killed. Like, it's just, and I know it gives you back all your artifacts except for Mech Titan Core because you gotta lose something. I don't know. Again, I feel like the design is kind of wimpy, and I get why you have to put 4 other things together with this to form the Power Rangers Ultron or whatever it's called. Like, I understand the flavor of why you have to do that, but why is it 4 other things? 4 things? That's a lot of things. So, dog, that's so many things. So many things. And they have to be artifact creatures or vehicles. It can't even just be artifacts. But, I guess I should say that if you have a bunch of artifact creatures or vehicles that do something when they enter the battlefield, and then your opponent kills your Mechatron or whatever, your Optimus Prime, then suddenly you get all that ETB value again. Like, there's ways to abuse this card, but 5 mana and 4 things? You killing me, Wizards. That's a lot to actually assemble Voltron, but I'll take it. If I don't do this on stream, I'll probably lose credibility as a content creator who loves jank. So, I mean, we got to try it, right? But I ain't expecting much, but I want to. I want to just assemble Voltron once in my life. I'll be happy. But there's only like 2 more cards to look at today. And I'm amazed that Vogue Justice made it this far up my list, but here we are. And Vogue Justice is 5 mana, 1 and 4 white for a sorcery. Return target permanent card from your graveyard to the battlefield. Then distribute 4 +1/+1 counters among any number of creatures and or vehicles that target player controls. So this, hi, by the way, I have to translate the last card, and there's a lot of text to translate. So I don't know if I'll be back for the last card. I'm not sure. So I wanted to talk about this card on screen. This actually kind of reminds me of a Verderus Gearhulk. Do you guys remember that card? It's one of my favorite Gearhulks, but instead, for your 5 mana investment, instead of just getting like a random 4/4 guy, now you get whatever permanent you want. Like you get a Planeswalker back, if that's what you want. That's awesome. You can get back a huge haste creature and then put 4 +1/+1 counters on it. Like, imagine in red-white, getting back of a Lamachus Lorehold, right? Immediately swinging with this 9 power thing that can now cast 9-drop instant or sorceries off the top of your library, if it hits one, right? So, like, that seems like a pretty obvious combo with this card right there. It's instantly the best reanimation piece in Standard, and it costs 4 white mana to cast, which is weird. White does, in the color pie, have the ability to reanimate things. I've yelled about it a million times in these, like, cards I want in such and such set videos, I've said that I want white reanimation back in a good form in a lot of these videos, and I guess they listened for once, right? They gave me something I really, really wanted. Because this is white reanimation, but kind of not like this, right? I want to also be able to play black cards in the deck, or really any other color of mana and Magic. I will say, though, I like the way this goes with like a Goldspan Dragon, just like a lot of these Invoke cards. A lot of these Invoke cards cost 4 of their color, but with a Goldspan Dragon out, that translates to just 2 treasure tokens. Just random treasure laying around, which you do have. So, or 1 treasure token and then 2 of any color in your mana base, which you're much more likely to have that. So, and this can reanimate a Goldspan, swings for 8, creates a treasure. Like, that's kind of disgusting. So, and hell, I mean, it's red-white dragons, right? You play this in the same deck that you play Velamachus. Might as well play in the same deck you play Goldspan. Putting the deck together right now. Imagine this getting back a Leer. And then you can play this out of your graveyard with your Leer. And your Leer is huge. But I like that you can reanimate a creature, or you can reanimate a Planeswalker. Reanimate a Planeswalker and then put the counters on a different creature, which is like also silly. There's a lot of ways to use this card. I know that 4 white mana is a lot, and 5 mana in total is ridiculous. But I actually think we might be entering a standard now after these bans, where a card like this is feasible to play. But we'll end up seeing how things shake out. I'm excited about getting to play this one, for real. But the last card of the day has to be Otawara, the Heavenly City. This is a legendary land that taps for blue. Uh-oh. It's the blue one. What does it do? So you can channel this for 3 and a blue and a discard to return target artifact, creature, enchantment, or planeswalker to its owner's hand. This ability costs 1 less to activate for each legendary creature you control. So it bounces a thing. For 4 mana and discard it, it bounces. At instant speed, by the way. And I know that 4 mana is a lot for a bounce. And I know this is also worded weirdly. Why did they not just say non-land permanent? So you can hit lands when they're creatures. That's why they did that. So you can actually answer creature lands in a blue deck. Especially a blue deck that doesn't have access to white or black or other colors with instant speed removal. So, in your mana base now, you have a Brazen Borrower, which is stupid. That's kind of stupid, and I hate it. Again, I know that people are going to look at this and be like, dude, it's 4 mana. That's ridiculous. But I guess I will say I'm glad that they banned Divide by Zero. I'm even more glad that they banned Divide by Zero now. Because, we were going to have to play against 10 to 12 bounce spells in these blue decks. That just gives them more built-in removal, more built-in bounce spells that cost them literally no opportunity cost in this case. I think this is a very good card that could see play in literally every format in which we play this great game. Just easily the actual best card of the day, even if it's not my favorite. I think it's easily the single best card of the day by far, just like these legendary lands have been up to now. These legendary lands have tended to be very, very good. And this one is no different. It's just unbelievable. 4 mana is a lot. You're correct. 4 mana is a ton. But, by the time you hit 4 mana, it's very likely that you're at the point where you can start discarding lands, and it won't matter that much. So, you draw this on turn 6. It's basically a bounce spell. Draw in the early game, free land drop, untapped every time. So, why would you not play at least 1 copy of this in every deck that makes blue mana? Right? So, just a slam dunk here. I think it's one of the stronger cards of the day and easily one of the stronger cards of the set, period, if not the best one we've seen so far. But I've just done the cursory reload on Mythic Spoiler, and we are done for this one. I thought maybe they would have spoiled more cards while I was running my yap, but they didn't, in fact. So that is it for now. Let me know what your favorite cards of the day were. I've made pretty clear what my favorite cards of the day were. Let me know down there what you want to do with my favorite cards. You can touch my cards. It's totally cool. There's no ownership of my favorite cards. Let me know what you want to do. And aside from that, let me know what your favorite cards were from the day. Anything that I missed. If there's oh, Devin, there's a... It'd be weird if you called me Devin for some reason. Like you're my mom. No one calls me that. But in any case, if you're like, hey, Dev, there's a infinite combo in standard with Kiki-Jiki. Wins the game on turn 4 somehow. Hey, let me know if I missed it. I don't think I did, but let me know if I did. But either way, hit me up down there in the comments section. Let me know how you feel about it all. And do all this stuff if you feel like it. Check me out on Twitch. We play some Magic over there, and we'll be talking about spoilers again before it's all said and done over on the Twitch channel. And you want to see what all the new decks are when the season starts up. You want to see me make a fool of myself over there. Go follow on Twitch. It's free. Aside from that, check out the Patreon. Appreciate all the new and returning patrons that we've had. We have a wave of new patrons, and a lot of our old patrons have upped their patronage and support since the heart attack. So just really want to say thank you to each and every one of you. I just put up a special post for you. If you haven't seen it, go check it out. But aside from that, follow me on Twitter if you want to. You don't have to, but if you want to. But I'm done for this one, so I'll turn it back over to you. Let me know how you felt about them. And I will catch you cats later. I am Deb from The Place. Thanks for watching, Wizards. Spread love and be kind.